That's why the wife decided to make everyone confused, and no one knows what exactly happened. This was before she went to the cemetery. In fact, she arrived at the grave and made sure that the cemetery guard could not see her, because the room where the cemetery guard lives is a long way from the intended grave that she is targeting. After she arrived at the place, the wife started digging inside the intended grave, and finally, she found the husband's body. She removed the covers that covered the husband's body, and you can imagine, viewers, where her husband was putting the money. After Shad reached the black box and entered inside, she heard the sound of the box door closing slowly while she was inside, and she found a paper written on it. Finally! To find out what was written on the paper and what happened to Shad inside the iron box, and where and how Shad found the money she was looking for, follow the video until the end, and do not forget to subscribe and like the video to continue publishing exciting stories. In fact, this story is considered one of the strangest true stories that actually happened, which you may not have heard of before. We can call the story the ugliest or hardest revenge. This story is from the book Rare Cases by Dr. Abdel Wahab al-Sayed al-Rifai. The story revolves around a girl named Shad, who is 21 years old. Her family was of average means and did not have a lot of money. She was living at an average level, but Shad was very beautiful and had attractive features that attracted all men. Shad worked in one of the government organizations. There were many men who were trying to communicate with Shad and establish a relationship with her for marriage, but Shad did not agree with everyone who asked for her friendship for marriage because she was looking forward to other things. She had special specifications in her future life partner. She stipulated in her future life partner that he be a person with a high level of education and enjoys handsomeness and agility, and that his age be close to her age, and that he has a very, very high income level that provides her with luxury in her future life. Luckily, Shad met this person one day. This was when this person came to sign some government signatures for his own papers in the organization where Shad worked, and she met him there because he owns many real estate companies. This young man was young and close to Shad's age. All of this young man's relatives in life were his mother and sister. This young man was very cultured and polite in his conversation with her. He also studied and graduated from one of the universities in the United States of America. From the first moment, Shad was very impressed with this young man, and she wished from the bottom of her heart that this young man was not related and that there was no woman in his life. But it is unlikely that a person with these specifications would not be accepted by girls, because it is very difficult for girls to resist a young man like this. And to be alone so far, the young man was single and had no relationship with any other girl. Shad learned of the young man's admiration for her and his attempts to contact her through one of her colleagues at work, who told her that the young man wants to contact her and wants to establish a relationship with her for the purpose of marriage, and he wants to get to know her more closely by contacting her from the phone. But Shad did not accept at first, and she pretended that she was not interested in him or his financial level or the real estate companies he owns or the cars and money he has in the bank. And Shad pretended that she was from a conservative family and could not communicate directly with strangers. This was not true. She actually wants him and wants to have a relationship with him, but she wants to make it more difficult for him. And she does not want to communicate directly with him from the first time, like all girls. Tell us in the comments, did your girlfriend do this at the beginning of your relationship? Or how did it happen? Finally, Shad accepted to communicate with him, and over the days they continued to communicate by phone, and sometimes in face-to-face interviews. And they continued to talk on the phone for hours during the following days, so they became attached to each other, and the engagement between them was quick. And after a few months, they got married in one of the big hotels. Now only Shad lives the luxurious life she dreamed of. She feels like a crowned queen in her life with her husband. She lives in a large palace full of servants and many amenities and luxury within this palace. She felt like she was living in the real heaven, but on earth. Her husband asked her to leave her job and focus on enjoying her life in the palace. He said he would take care of everything she needed in the house. He also provided her with a private driver and never delayed in giving her any money she needed for anything. He asked her if she felt bored in her life with him in the palace. She had the option to establish any project of her own for entertainment and to kill time and to break the boredom only. Shad spent the most beautiful days of her life with her husband between trips, resorts, gifts, parks, cafes, and all forms of luxury that any girl dreams of. Shad was not thinking about having children at the time, and she agreed with her husband to postpone having children for years to come, and that they should enjoy their current life as they are still in the early years of their marriage, and that it will affect her level of beauty, and it will also distract her from taking care of him personally. The couple agreed on this and postponed having children for later years. Shad lived the most beautiful 2 months of her life, and that she was in bliss that she did not dream of. Suddenly everything changed and everything turned for the worse. What happened? It was when they were returning from a dinner party at a friend's house. When they were returning by car, suddenly one of the tires of the car exploded. The car started to deviate from its course until it collided and turned several times on the road due to the high speed it was traveling at. While Shad is looking, she saw her husband unconscious, suffering from many severe and cruel injuries. She did not know the extent of the injuries in the husband's body, as the accident was tragic. But fortunately, Shad was in a somewhat stable condition, so she was able to pick up the phone and immediately call the ambulance, which had already arrived at the scene of the accident, and the couple were taken to the hospital. After a short while, the husband's sister and mother arrived. The screaming was very loud from both of them, and the screaming increased to higher and higher degrees when the doctor told them about the husband's condition. He was completely paralyzed for life, and there is no hope that his body will move again, while most of the injuries that have befallen him will heal, except for his ability to move, his hand only. During that time, and upon hearing this news, the mother lost consciousness while the screams of the sister and wife rose. The husband remained in the hospital for 9 months. But, imagine, dear viewer, this wife. She had been living in bliss between parks, resorts, and trips for a while. Suddenly, everything turned upside down, and she is now faced with new commitments. So when she wakes up from sleep, she has to prepare herself for a trip to the hospital to accompany her husband and help him in the personal matters he needs due to the condition he was injured in for the entire time allowed for the companions in the hospital. And so the days passed, boring and monotonous in the same pattern. And what made it worse for her was that her husband was not even able to speak during this period. As for the other surprise that the wife did not expect, that when the husband regained his ability to speak, they discovered that his memory was not working as well as it was before. He had a severe head injury that made him lose a lot of memories and a lot of mental processes in a normal person. Shad was telling herself that she had to bear this husband because they were together, and that perhaps she would be the one who was injured, and he would have to bear this responsibility towards her. Being in this hospital was boring for everyone, the mother, the sister, and the wife. Finally, the doctors authorized him to leave the hospital and complete his treatment at home. The husband left the hospital in a wheelchair, although this chair is very developed, and the husband can control it through his hand that was not injured in the accident. However, it is also limited. It is only to transfer his body from one place to another. This chair does not serve him if he wants to use the bathroom or climb into bed or make an unusual transition. There must be a permanent companion for the husband. Even the bed that the doctors authorized him to sleep on is not like a regular bed, but rather it has some medical equipment as in the hospital. He also needs a companion, or rather we can call him a nurse. The husband's condition is no longer the same as before. He is a sick person who needs someone to nurse him and watch over his comfort. In the beginning, Shad was the wife who played this role. She was doing it perfectly while one of the doctors was following up on his condition almost daily. Here, Shad began to feel bored and not improve. She began to blame herself for the decision she made to stay by the side of this sick husband. She began to recall memories of how she postponed having children so that she would not bear the responsibility of children. And here she is now bearing the responsibility of a child. And this time it is not like ordinary children, but it is a big child and needs more care. The wife thought about how she would get out of this problem and how she could bear this great responsibility. She suggested to her husband that she should hire a nurse to help her serve him on the condition that both the wife Shad and the nurse would take turns serving all day long. The husband felt displeased with this request and felt that he was a burden on his wife. But under pressure from his wife, the husband was forced to agree to this request and accept the entry of a new nurse into his daily life. The wife Shad contacted one of the medical service companies to request a nurse to work at home. And the circumstances changed after the nurse took over this responsibility instead of her, so that she was spending most of her day outside the house with friends in the evening and walking until she spent about 2 weeks outside the house one time, and she did not communicate with her husband by phone except once. During this long period, the husband's family felt proud of Shad, and that she was an example to be followed in bearing responsibility, and how she did not abandon her sick husband. But after these actions, the last of which was her stay for 2 full weeks outside the house, on a trip with her friend. This feeling of pride and love turned into a feeling of underestimation and a condescending look at her, and that she is not what they expected to be, an example of loyalty. She had abandoned her responsibility towards her husband, which made the feeling of the husband's family change towards Shad, especially his sister. As for the unexpected surprise, Shad discovered during her 2-week trip away from her husband that she is very nostalgic, but not for her husband, but for someone else. He is the private doctor who treats her husband and supervises his care from time to time. When Shad returned from this trip, and in her first meeting with the doctor at home, she could not help but express her hidden feelings, and that she loves this doctor very much, and that she has been hiding these feelings in her heart for a long time. But the strangest thing is that the doctor also had the same feelings for her for a long time. But he didn't have the courage to express these feelings in these circumstances. Shad told the doctor, "Please don't look at me as a fallen woman or a traitor. Please think about my feelings. I am a lonely person for a long time with this sick person, and I want someone to share my life with. This is my right. I only made sure of these feelings when I was away for a long time without seeing you. The 2 weeks I spent on my trip with my friend were enough time to confirm my feelings towards you. And from that moment, everything was not the same as before." The relationship between the doctor and Shad grew so strong that they forgot about the sick husband. The doctor often joked with Shad and sometimes flirted with her, even in the presence of her husband. Both Shad and the doctor relied on this behavior in front of the husband, on the distortion that affected his memory, and that he will not remember what happens in front of him. But some memories remain with the husband, and he feels his wife, how she neglected him and got attached to someone else. And she does not pay him any attention even in his presence. The doctor caresses her in front of his eyes, and she exchanges glances. And each of them is interested in the other, while the poor husband is lying on the bed, and he has no control over his affairs. The doctor, with the help of Shad, sometimes relied on anesthetizing him and practicing love during that. Until the husband confronted her and declared the bitterness that squeezed his heart and asked her directly, "What is the relationship that connects you to the doctor?" Shad could only swear to her husband that she has no relationship with this doctor, and that it is just understandings about his health condition, and that the matter does not exceed that. But the husband's sister understood what was going on in secret, and she knew about the suspicious relationship between the doctor and the wife. Because the husband's sister saw Shad with the doctor in the car one time, which prompted her to closely monitor Shad, and the doctor Shad could only deny the relationship between her and the doctor in front of the husband's sister. And she justified her presence in the car with the doctor that the doctor asked for some medicines, and Shad went out to buy these medicines and met the doctor by chance. On the way, the doctor was offered for Shad to take her at home by car. She also asked him to explain to her how to use this medicine, and that the matter does not go beyond mere understanding about the husband's health condition. There is nothing else like a relationship or similar between the doctor and Shad. That's what she said to her husband's sister, and with heavy surveillance from her husband's sister. She was visiting her brother without an appointment to check on him. Shahid felt watched. Her husband's sister Shahed went to the doctor and said that he must act now, because I'm afraid that you will discover the relationship between you and me in front of my husband's sister or my husband. The doctor said to Shad, "Don't we love each other?" She said, "Yes, I love you so much." And the doctor continued, "Shouldn't we continue our lives with each other?" She said, "Yes." Shad says it frankly. "Yes, I will continue my life with you." The doctor continues, "Then we must get rid of this sick husband." At first, Shahid objected to this and adamantly refused. But she did not find another solution. But she said to the doctor, "I can't kill anyone or get rid of anyone. If he must be one of us, he is the killer. It must be you, doctor." The doctor said, "It's simple. I have the way to get rid of the husband." At the same time, no one can doubt that the doctor is the one who did this act as well. I will not leave any evidence of that. But Shad, you must save your money. These properties, these companies, these cars and mansions. You must find a way to get it first. If the husband feels this relationship or anything suspicious, perhaps he acted imprudently. Perhaps he records his property and money to his family. He does not make you a share of this estate. The doctor said to Shad, "You must now go to court, and you ask for quarantine on this sick husband, and prevent him from disposing of his money because you are able to dispose of it. He is sick and will not be able to take care of this property. So the court will rule that you have the right to dispose of this property." Indeed, Shad went to court and filed the case of the husband's quarantine and prevented him from disposing of his money. There is now nothing left but to get rid of the husband's life, in order for both the doctor and Shad to be blessed with this money. Now the doctor can act in this matter with his comfort. The plan was for Shad not to be in the house when the task was carried out. The plan went as planned. Shad was at that time with a friend at a dinner party. While the doctor is at home, the doctor chose the time when the housekeepers were engaged in private business in the palace. There is no one with the husband except the doctor. The doctor decided that was all he had to do. The doctor pushes the husband off the medical chair from the second floor to the first floor. In this case, his neck may break and he may die immediately. If he does not die immediately, the doctor will try to deceive the servants that he is helping him. In fact, he has the medical skills to do so without any medical evidence that can be discovered by the medical profession. On the other hand, Shad is at a dinner party waiting for the phone call from the doctor. The doctor tells her that her husband has fallen from the second floor to the first floor, and that he has tried to save him several times, but he is sorry that he cannot help him. The husband dies. Shad masters the role in front of her friends. The phone falls out of her hand when she hears the news. She screams loudly, cries, and runs as if she is very sad for her husband. She leaves her friends and goes to the palace. However, she is surprised by the police and the ambulance. She is also surprised by a report submitted against her by the husband's sister. The sister accuses Shad of conspiring with the doctor to kill her husband. She accused her of killing her brother and tried to take revenge on her. Even if Shad did not participate herself, there was a plan that she had prepared with her lover, the doctor. This is what the husband's sister stated. When Shad arrived at the palace, the husband's sister fought with her and got into a physical fight with her. She accused her of killing her brother and tried to take revenge on her. The husband's sister, in the report submitted against Shad, points out that the evidence on which she relies to accuse Shad of killing her husband is that the husband's sister saw Shad and the doctor talking a lot before the husband's death, and she had previously filed a case in court requesting that the husband's money be quarantined because he cannot control his money or maintain it or dispose of it. Under the court's ruling, Shad can dispose of the husband's money without accounting for it. In this case, the husband will represent just a burden that must be eliminated. This has actually happened, and the husband died as a result of an accident falling from the second floor. Perhaps this is not a coincidence, but rather something that has been carefully planned. Perhaps these accusations are logical, but the court's ruling is what will validate which expectations are more correct. Perhaps this case would have been very easy for the police with two other people other than Shad and this doctor, but these two people specifically had the ability to act, which enabled them to master the role brilliantly. Perhaps we did not mention this remark earlier, but before Shad came to the palace after hearing the news of her husband's death, she stood on one side of the road while she tried to fake vomiting in order to make her face look pale and to have the makeup destroyed on her face. And all this will indicate when looking at Shad from strangers and police officers specifically that the matter is very normal, as she is a faithful wife to her husband. Shad was very sad when she heard the news of her husband's death. She cried a lot and her face turned pale. Even the makeup on her face melted. This scene was familiar. As for the doctor, his presence in the place was very logical and acceptable. He is a doctor who supervises his medical condition and follows him on a daily or semi-daily basis. His presence in the place at late hours or even throughout the day does not arouse any suspicion. That was all. Therefore, the police had no opportunity to accuse the doctor or the wife of killing the husband. During the investigation, a question was asked to the husband's sister. Since you knew about the relationship between the doctor and Shad, why didn't you tell your brother and ask him to divorce Shad? Why didn't you go to the police and tell them what happened? Why didn't you replace the doctor with another doctor when you suspected the relationship between the doctor and Shad? For these reasons, it was not logical to accuse the doctor or Shad in front of the police. Therefore, they were acquitted of the charge of killing the husband. The funeral ceremony was held in a very normal way. The doctor and Shad had previously agreed that they would not meet or call for at least 1 year. When they met for the first time after this incident, it would seem normal as if it were a coincidence. They would meet on the side of the road or in a cafe without an appointment, so that it would seem normal to people. They met and felt attracted to each other, so they wanted to get married. But the strange paradox is that Shad called the doctor on the phone after only 1 month. The doctor said, "Didn't I tell you not to call me for at least 1 year?" Shad said, "Yes, I was not going to call you before 1 year from now, but a very strange thing happened that I did not expect. While I was at the lawyer's office to conduct the inheritance announcement to get my share of the inheritance, the lawyer surprised me that there is no money in the banks in the name of the husband. There are also no real estate companies or cars or anything in the name of the husband. How? How did that happen?" The lawyer does not know, and I do not know, and no one knows where the husband's money went. The matter is confusing and confusing. Even the doctor felt that Shad was playing with him. She was just a trick to get him all the money and not share it with the doctor. She may have a relationship with someone else and wants to continue her life with him with this money. And the doctor was just a station where she spent some time and did some simple tasks to complete the journey she was planning with someone else. But Shad swore to the doctor that she really did not find any money and did not know where her husband went with the money or the property. She also asked him to ask the lawyer by himself. In the end, Shad decided that she had no choice but to search inside the walls of the palace, because her paralyzed husband could not handle the money and take it out of the palace. If he was able to withdraw this money, where would he put it except in the palace? Shad thought, maybe I'll find a clue that will lead me to the money, a will, or any other hint that I can get anything from inside this palace. I won't leave it like this. Shad searched for 10 whole days in all corners of the palace. Finally, after 10 days of searching, Shad found a small piece of paper. Maybe it is what will solve the puzzle, and she will learn about the location of the money. Now Shad is starting to take the right step to get the money. The paper was in the husband's office. But the strange paradox is that the paper pointed to another clue. But Shad was never happy. She would not be able to go to this place. It is a desolate place, very far away, and also a scary place. You can imagine where the husband hid the money. The message on the paper that Shad found was a message from the husband to his sister. Because she is the only one who knows this secret place that Shad got the paper from, the message on the paper indicated that the location was accurately specified on another paper. But, dear viewer, can you imagine where the husband put the other paper? And that this paper is very small and wrapped well and tightly inside a very small capsule the size of a pill. Imagine where this capsule will be, dear viewer. It is in a small wound in the husband's right thigh. This means that if Shad wants to get the money, she must go to the cemetery and dig in the grave of her husband, take out his body, open the covers, and then look for the wound where the capsule was hidden. Can you imagine, dear viewer, the amount of terror that Shad felt as soon as she knew the location of the capsule that contains a paper with information indicating the location of the money? There are many questions in Shad's mind. For example, she cannot go to this place during the day because she may be discovered by the police or by visitors to the place. She cannot ask strangers for help because they may report her to the police. She cannot trust the doctor and tell him the location of the capsule that contains the location of the money because he may betray her and go to the place himself, get the paper, and take the money for himself without sharing it with Shad, and he may even kill her because he has killed before. These questions were eating Shad's head. The world went around her. In the end, Shad decided to go to the cemetery herself at night. Shad prepared with all the important tools that would help her in this matter. She brought a flashlight, digging equipment, and everything needed for this matter. Shad was not a naive person, so when she went on this mission, she expected that she might be followed by the police, or by the husband's sister, or even by the doctor himself. So she left the palace and kept driving around the palace several times. She also went to many streets left and right to deceive whoever follows her and mislead him about the main destination she will head to in the end. And indeed, Shad reached the destination she wanted, which is the cemetery. The place was completely empty. Shad was lucky that the cemetery keeper's room was very far from the grave where her husband was buried. She started digging herself and reached the body of her husband. She cut the cloth that covered his body. The body was in a deplorable state. It had completely decomposed. She kept looking for the capsule in the thigh area. Finally, she found the capsule she was looking for. She was very happy to have found this capsule and got it. The paper was a message that said, "All my money is in a metal box under the grave I was buried in." This means that if Shad wanted to get the money, she had to dig under the grave again. Shad was puzzled and wondered if there was another box under her husband's body. So she took out her husband's body from the grave and started digging again under the grave to reach the intended metal box. It was a very large metal box. The door was very heavy, but Shad managed to open it. She entered inside and used the flashlight she brought with her. But the strange thing is that she kept looking and looking in this box. The box was a large, heavy metal room with a top door or cover. It actually looked like an iron grave, and there was only sand at the bottom. While searching inside the box, Shad felt footsteps outside the grave, and she felt the door slowly closing on her while she was inside. The door was closed tightly. Shad kept knocking on the door and calling, but no one answered. Her voice could not be heard outside. She was now in a closed place. The flashlight was on, and in one of the corners of the room, she found a small paper. She wondered how long she would stay in this puzzle from one place to another, but she had no choice but to follow the game to the end. The paper was a message that said, "Finally, you have reached here, you slut." In the end, this paper was written by the husband's sister, not by the husband himself. The husband's sister had planned all the steps of this game in advance, even during her husband's lifetime, and the plan was executed accurately as she drew it. Even the door that was closed was not a coincidence. The husband's sister had hired a group of people who were waiting for Shad to reach the place and close this door on her, in return for a certain fee that had been agreed upon in advance. The husband's sister was very intelligent. She was watching Shad from a distance, even through the mobile phone that Shad had in her hand. She was following her through GPS. She managed to hack into her phone and was able to follow her step by step. She knew everything in advance. She also threw her the bait from the beginning through the first paper that Shad found in the office. Later, the mystery of the capsule found inside her husband's thigh was solved, which contains another paper. So the husband did not know anything about this capsule. Because he is completely paralyzed in this area, the sister used her brother's nurse, and she anesthetized him with the help of the nurse one day. And she put this capsule that contains this paper after that. In his thigh, the wound healed, and no trace of it appeared. As for the money, there is a big question. Where did his money go? The sister was able to obtain the husband's fingerprints during his lifetime. In the moments when Shad was absent from her husband, the sister was able to sign contracts for the sale and transfer of ownership from her brother to her. The sister started implementing this plan. When I felt the relationship between Shad and the doctor before, until Shahed even thought of filing a case in court, she demanded that the husband's property be interdicted. The other part of the message written in the paper I got in the iron box was saying, "This box contains a secret exit. If you reach it, Shad, you will know a huge surprise that you could not have imagined." The other surprise was the body of the doctor who participated in the mission to kill the husband, but the latter was killed by a gunshot. As for you, Shad, you must die in this way. You must die while you are alive. In the end, Shad could not tell this story because her end was inside this iron box. But this story was told by the husband's sister. That's when she went to a psychiatrist. She tells him how much suffering she is experiencing, feeling guilty for this great crime that she planned. As a result, the doctor was killed and testified. She feels the pain of remorse, and she always dreams terrifying nightmares because she did this horrible way of revenge. Tell us in the comments, is what the husband's sister did? Can it be issued by a normal person? Is it possible to kill two people in such a horrible way?